this will be recorded because I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of good information. So hopefully you guys are ready. So Coach Stricklin, again, really appreciate your time. Looking forward to getting to chat for a little bit.
No, I'm happy to be here. It's good for me. With all this going on, I don't really get to talk basketball as much as I would like to, or as much as I'm used to. So yeah, I appreciate this probably more than anybody else does.
I doubt that, but I'm glad that we're able to get you talking a little bit. And you live in Roseburg, right?
Right. I live in Roseburg, right, if anyone's familiar with the area, right behind Roseburg High School. I could hit the gym with a baseball.
I know right where that is then.
So.
Well, great. Well, maybe do you want to give us a little journey? I know you got the opportunity to coach with your dad. Maybe talk through a little bit more about your journey from kind of how you grew up and those type of things. So would you take us through that, Coach?
Yeah, when I first graduated from college, I got a high school coaching job at Los Amigos High School, and so I was the head girls coach at Los Amigos High School, and I was the assistant women's coach at Golden West College in Huntington Beach, California. And back then, the community colleges, at least the ones in California, they were a spring sport. So they didn't start till January. So I could coach at the high school all during the year. And then once January came around, then I worked with both teams for a couple months. And then high school ended, and then I was solely with the college. Well, only after a year, then the community colleges went back to normal basketball schedule. And so I gave up coaching at the high school, and I was my dad's assistant coach for 3 years. And after 3 years, he became the athletic director. And when he became the athletic director, the school made me the head coach. And then after a few more years of that, he got tired of being an athletic director, came back into coaching. And so then he and I coached together for the last several years. And then when I moved to Oregon, he retired a couple of years later and then moved up here, and then has worked with me as much as he can, his health permitting now. He's getting fairly old now.
And in addition to your dad getting to work with him, you also have been able to coach your daughter. Is that right?
Yeah, that was as good at 2 years, as fun at 2 years as I've ever had. She grew up in our gym. We have pictures of her practicing in practice, standing on the line, waiting to run when she was about 3 years old. Grew up there, got to the point where it was time for her to decide what she was going to do. And so she played for us for 2 years, and she had an awesome career, made it extremely easy for me. And those were probably, the highlights of my entire coaching career. I don't know if it was her highlights or her playing career, but
I'm sure she enjoyed it.
I loved it. She probably tolerated it.
I'm sure looking back, she'll have enjoyed those memories for sure. So this year, 29-0, Coach. Maybe walk us through last year's NWAC tournament and how that kind of finished up and how that unfinished business kind of carried over to this season. Well,
so last year, first of all, we have a pretty good streak going. We've always been pretty good. The last 6 or 7 years, we've been really good. The last 4 years, we've been 117-10 over the last 4 years. And so 2 years ago, we had all freshmen except my daughter, who was a sophomore. And so, we lost a couple games. We lost a couple games early. She carried us the whole first half of the season. And then all of a sudden, the freshmen became more experienced and knew how we did things. And so we played extremely well in January and February. And so we won our first 3 playoff games, and we're playing for the NWAC championship it was in Everett. We're playing Wenatchee Valley, and the game went back and forth the entire game, and it came down to there was probably, I don't know, 36, 37 seconds to go in the game. The score was tied. We told everybody we need 1 stop, and we were going to win it. And we went out defensively, did everything we were supposed to do, forced I don't know, it was probably 27, 28 foot shot at the buzzer as the 30-second clock was going off. It was an air ball. We caught the rebound, and then the whistle blew, and they called a foul on the shot, and we have a picture of that shot with the girl with a hand up who was at least 6 inches in front of her. I mean, there wasn't any contact. There wasn't. I don't know. It was just one of those things that, and so now instead of us having the ball with the score tied with 7 seconds to go or whatever, they're shooting 3 free throws, and essentially that was the game, and so anyway, extremely disappointed. That would have been a once in a lifetime experience for me. My dad was on the bench as my assistant coach, and my daughter was playing, and there's not many places anywhere that get a chance where 3 generations get a court at the exact same time, and to win a championship. And so anyway, so it was disappointing. We kind of regrouped this past year, and now all of those freshmen all came back and were all sophomores, and they were all, a lot of people talk about unfinished business and things, but we really kind of lived it. And we had 10 girls back who had championship game experience and who were focused from day one. And like I said, I did very little coaching this year. I stayed out of their way. They were focused. They worked hard. We just kind of plowed through the schedule. And I guess the disappointing about all this is we hadn't peaked yet. We were playing well, but we were still making corrections, and still as a group thought that we could still get a little bit better over the next couple of weeks. And that's the disappointing part, is that we didn't really get a chance to not only win another championship, but we didn't really get a chance to kind of maximize, our potential together.
Man, and that's just, I've never heard of a team go 29-0 and be disappointed at the end of the season. I mean, this is probably one of the first times that's ever happened, and obviously the first time they've shut down sports worldwide. But man, what was it? So you guys were the next team up, is that right? Your game was about to start when they canceled the tournament?
Yeah, that happened twice. The first time, the game before ours was going on, and we had already met, we were dressed. We were going to play the winner of the game before ours, so we were watching the end of that game, getting ready to play. And then NWAC officials called me over, off to the side, back by the locker rooms, and explained to me that they were postponing the tournament. And I walked back out and saw the girls. They saw the look on my face. They knew exactly. I gave them kind of a thumbs down, and they knew exactly what that meant. But that wasn't as disappointing as that was. They told us they were postponing the tournament. So we drove back. We were in Everett. We drove back to Roseburg, we practiced the next 3-4 days, not knowing what was going to happen. And then we got a call saying, okay, the tournament's back on. It's going to be in Albany. This is when you're playing. And so we did everything the same thing. Went the night before, shot around, ate together, did all our pregame preparation, and then we're getting ready to leave the hotel and go to the van. And I got a text from our athletic director saying the tournament had been canceled, and not postponed this time, but it had been canceled. And I sent a text out to the group text, and all I had on it was a crying emoji on it. No words, didn't say anything, just had the crying emoji. And we walked out into the lobby and got into the van, and nobody said a word. And we got in the van and drove back from Albany to UCC, and knew right then that our season was over.
Man, that's tough. That's a hard way for a season to end, because you kind of prepare a speech for a loss or an injury or something, but to prepare for that. And then if you guys have questions, or if there's anything you want to ask Coach Stricklin, feel free to drop that in the comments. So if you guys have a question, something you want to ask Coach, I'll keep an eye on that, see if anybody's got any questions. What's your daughter? Is she at Eastern? Is that right?
Yeah, she played at Eastern Oregon this year, and she's got one more, and she's got one more year, next year. And to tell the truth, if we had won that game against Wenatchee, I probably would have quit coaching for a while, dude, because it wouldn't get any better than that. You're going to win the champion with all freshmen. Nobody gave us a chance. We had no business of being there. And to win it again with 3 generations involved in it. And I probably would have taken a couple of years off to watch her play. And I had thought about doing that anyway last year. And she told me, when I talked to Taylor about it, she told me that I couldn't, that all those freshmen had all come to the school because of me, and that I couldn't leave with unfinished business, that I had to finish it out. Even though she wasn't going to be involved, I had to stay. And so I stayed this past year. And so I got a chance to watch her, periodically. I watched a lot of games on Synergy, got to see her play in person 5 or 6 games. Not as many as I'd like to, but that's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah. So Ethan asked, how have you been dealing with the postseason? Have you been having any meetings or workouts with returners? How many girls are you bringing back? Are there
none? So
none.
It's really a good question, because it was really a bad time to have so many sophomores. So now we are completely starting over, and so we're going to be all freshmen next year. If we started tomorrow, we'll have players from 7 different and 3 different countries.
7 states and 3 countries.
And 3 countries. And so we haven't had a lot of Zoom meetings, because we're all on there's so many different time zones. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 different time zones that we're working with. And so we've had a lot of text messaging, and I send out texts or emails, and I hear back from people when we can, but we haven't sat down like this, because it's just logistically it's not possible.
Yeah. Sawyer wants to know, what's the biggest difference you've seen between girls and boys hoops?
Well, I I don't really know as far as the guys are right now, because I don't really work with them a lot. When I first started, I think the biggest difference is that the girls were really hungry for coaching, that they really wanted to get better. At my level, nobody wants to play at this level. I mean, nobody grows up saying, their college dream isn't to play at Umpqua Community College. Everybody wants to go D1 and go big time. So when I first started coaching, a lot of the men's players, if they ended up at a 2-year school, they were upset. They didn't want to be there. They were there because the University of Oregon or Oregon State or somebody, slept on them and overlooked them, and so they were stuck there. Where the girls are happy to play. The girls, there's not as many of the girls who they just want to play and get better, and they want good coaching, and they're not quite as concerned, as a with a D1 or nothing attitude. And so that's kind of the biggest, thing that I've noticed. And the other thing is just watching some of it, is that it's easier to have an off-court relationship sometimes with the girls. If the girls get an A on the test and they're away from home, they're sprinting to my office to show me their test and tell me, hey, how they've done and how they're doing in class. And I don't think the guys, I don't know if it's an ego thing or just way guys have been, but guys don't really do that as much. Guys kind of compartmentalize a little bit better or a little bit differently. They have, they're players, and then there are people off the court. And with the women, it kind of all, meshes together. I think it's all, there's not, my experience is there's not as big a line drawn between, Taylor the player and Taylor the person or Taylor the student. I think, I don't know if that makes sense or answers the question, but I think that coaching women coaching girls, a lot of times you're dealing more with the whole person and not just the athlete.
That makes sense. Yeah. That kind of answered this, but what's your favorite part about coaching? Noah wants to know what your favorite part is about coaching.
Well, I think the favorite parts by far is the relationships that you have with the people that you work with whether it's the players or whether it's the coaches. We played our last game. I don't know, it seems like it's been forever. We played our last game probably 3 months ago. I have no idea what the score of the game was. I couldn't tell you who our leading scorer is, who our leading rebounder was. I don't know any of the specifics of that game. And so much less remembered scores of games, 5 years, 10 years. But I remember the people, and I remember the relationships, and still being in contact with, with all those players that have come here. To me, that's the most rewarding part, is knowing that you had a big enough impact on somebody's life that they want you in their life 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I think that's the biggest part.
I agree with that. The relationships are key.
Yeah. And for me, it's been great because it keeps me, it's kept me young. I mean, I don't have any friends my age. I don't hang out with anybody my age. It keeps me young, hanging out, with younger people. And so it's kept my thoughts young and my outlook on life young and everything else like that. And so that's really been good for me.
That's great. Stella wants to know, since we haven't been able to have club basketball this year, how would you suggest getting coaches' attention if you're wanting to be recruited?
Well, I think that I think that number one, you reach out to them. Normally in the past we wouldn't really recommend players directly coaching or contacting coaches. I think there's more credibility if your high school coach contacts a four-year school rather than if the player does it. But since the times right now are so strange, I would just reach out, and I would email, or I would get on social media, and I would contact coaches that way, and make some kind of initial contact. And coaches have a lot of time right now, and are spending a lot of time recruiting. I haven't ever heard of anybody who was upset because a player reached out to that coach and establish some kind of relationship. And then I think what you have to do is everything right now is on video, which makes it really hard for both players and coaches. So I think highlight tapes are good. I think once you make contact with some kind of coach, if somebody were to contact me and they say they have a highlight tape, I would watch the highlight tape, but because we can't see people right now in club, I would like to see full game video. I'd like to see somebody, just so I can see how do they interact with their teammates? How do they play defense? How do they react when something is going well or something is not going well? Those are the things that we can't see by not watching people play in person. But I can't tell you how many highlights I get, and it's a 3-minute highlight, and there's probably, it shows the player, I don't know, probably making 15 layups. If you're going to be a college basketball player, I got to assume that you can make a layup, an uncontested layup. And even though it's on the end of the fast break, those types of highlights aren't really, I don't think they're really helpful for most coaches. I think you send a highlight tape that shows you doing a lot of different things. Can you take it to the rim once? Can you hit the three? Can you shoot it off the dribble? Whatever you can do, any type of highlight tape that's gonna, I guess, highlight your entire skill set, and then you send a tape, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to score 40 in the game tape. It's just, I think coaches aren't necessarily looking to see, if you can shoot or to score. They're looking to see, do you just know how to play? And some of those things you can only tell by watching full games.
For sure. And I'll add to that, you want your highlight video to capture the attention of a coach enough that they're willing to take the time to watch a tape. So if you show a video and it's just you shooting layups, I'm probably not going to take the time to watch a game. So making sure your highlight video, like what Coach said, is well diverse and not just you doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over. I think it's really important to show that you can have different skill sets. And also, he said, if you can have a coach, whether that's a high school coach or your club coach, reach out to the college coach, and then you could follow up. But I think it kind of has a credibility if it's coming from another coach. So what about travel ball, Coach Stricklin? The question was, how does summer ball fit into your recruiting?
I spend a lot of time in the past. I mean, I've spent every July on, watching players and putting together lists, of 2, 3, 4 years ahead of time. But again, this virus is making us all reevaluate how we do things, to reevaluate. I'll be able to tell you by December, January, if you can recruit without seeing all those people and your recruiting is just as good, I have to ask myself, okay, have I actually been getting anything out of going to watch hundreds of games over July, or is my recruiting actually going to be better focusing on one player at a time? I love club ball, and my daughter grew up playing it. I think it's great, but I've also been, at tournaments in Chicago where there's, 75 games going on at once, and you're in the far corner and nobody's watching you play, and you're going, and a lot of those clubs, depending on what the break point is, they've got 10, 12 girls on a team. You're running in and out. You don't really get a chance to get in the flow of the game. I think that there's obviously some benefit to it, but I don't know. I think that there's some benefit on watching kids play at the high school level, where they can be involved in more things, where they're not just playing 4 minutes at a time, and they're, where sometimes they're the focal point of their team and not just, the seventh or eighth person. For
sure, I agree with that. An X's and O's question, Coach. So what's your philosophy basketball? How do you like to play? Do you run a lot of set plays, or do you prefer like a continuity? Talk to us a little bit about your style of play.
So our goal at the beginning of every year is we want to score 90 points a game. That's what we're trying to do. This year we scored 84 a game, and last year I think it was a little bit higher, but we're shooting for 90. So we have to play with some pretty good pace. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to fast break after makes and misses. We fast break on any rebound and steal, and we have our own kind of version of Paul Westhead's fast break that he ran against Loyola Marymount back in the years, where we think we can inbound the ball and get it down the floor, and sometimes in about 5-6 seconds, and have a pretty good shot. If we don't have anything off the break, then we're going to run. Our first look's going to be inside. We run a lot of five out motion, where we're breaking a lot of different people into the post, and then we've got a couple offenses that are really post oriented that we use to jam the ball inside. And either way, once we set the offense up, our first look is inside, whether it's off the drive or posting up. And then what happens is, people drop off to stop the inside. And so, this last year we had a girl who came off the bench for us that led the NWAC in threes. The year before, Taylor led the country at all levels of threes made, and hit 130 or something like that. And we ran very little. I mean, most of it was inside outside. But now, having said that, I think that one of the other things that we chart and that we want to do is we don't want to go down more than 3 times in a row without scoring. And we don't want to give our opponents, we don't want to let them score 3 times in a row. So, we have a handful of set plays that if we go down and don't score 2 or 3 times in a row, then chances are we're going to call something out and run some kind of set where we can kind of go to whoever the hot hand is, whether it's a guard or whether it's a post player or a wing, but we can have whoever is the hot hand during that game at least touch the ball. And so it's really a combination of both. If it would be nice if we never have to run that, if we're going down, whether it's the fast break and whether we're running kind of 5 out and scoring on that, as long as we're consistently scoring, then we'll never run any set plays. But if we're struggling for whatever reason, then we have some that we use. But basically it's if we haven't scored every 2 or 3 times down.
That makes sense. That's great.
See, our philosophy is part of it at this level. It's different than a lot of other levels. I figure my main responsibility, my main job at the community college is not only to provide a great experience for the players, but to help those people improve to the point where they can keep playing, where they may get recruited by 4-year schools. And in order to do that, most 4-year schools, they're either gonna recruit athleticism and they're gonna recruit offense. I know everybody says defense wins championships. Nobody recruits that for the most part. We've all had kids on our team that are great lockdown defenders and score 2 points a game and don't have people knocking their door down to give them an opportunity to keep playing. So for us, that's why we want to score 90 a game. If we can score 90 a game, so this year we had 6 players averaging double figures and 1 at 9.8. So if we can score a lot of points, then we have a lot of people who can score. Then we have a lot of assists. We have a lot of involvement in terms of offense. So we have players can send tapes out and show 4-year schools that, hey, this is what I can do. And that's why we play the way that we can, because the more we can score, then it helps me market our players on to the next level. Now, not everybody has that or is in that position to do that. Not everybody needs to do that. That's just how we've done it.
That's awesome. That's interesting. I'd love to hear that. Let me ask this question. How is recruiting, 881 wins is what I think you're at, Coach. How is recruiting from like the 4-year level down to the junior college level changed from when you won those first games, those first years, to where now? How has that changed?
Well, it's a lot of that stuff. Years ago. So when the for example, when the N1 first started, when all the community colleges in Oregon and Washington first started, Jim Sollers, and do you know Jim? Used to be.
I know Jim really well.
So Jim Sollers used to coach at Wenatchee Valley College, and they were great teams when he was there. So, but at the time, Wenatchee Valley College had more scholarships and better scholarships than both University of Washington and Washington State. So Jim got the best players in the state.
Wow.
It wasn't like I'm going to turn down Wenatchee to go to, the other 2 schools. It was the other way around, because they could get more money and better scholarships by going to Wenatchee. So obviously now that is completely changed. And so, right now coaching staffs are at the D1 level are huge. Technology has let all those coaches find and see more players. I think it wasn't you first started coaching, AAU club ball, huge. Everybody went to find players there. The 4-year coaches aren't really looking for players now at club ball. They're going to watch people that they're already interested in. They're going to watch people that they already have been in contact with. But way back when, that wasn't the case. Everybody went because everybody was looking for players, and now that's changed a little bit. That's changed a little bit over the years.
I think that's a very interesting point, that they're not going to discover a player. And I think that's something for me. If we're going to go watch a player, we already probably know that they're a good enough skill set to play for us. Now I'm looking to see if there's a reason I should not recruit them. Maybe they have the negative body language, or they're looking up in the crowd at their parents. There's certain things that you're looking for not to recruit them.
Well, I was at a game, I don't know, it's probably been 4 or 5 years, 6 years ago, and I was at a game, and we're watching somebody play, and I was sitting right behind the Stanford coaches, and there was a girl playing in the game, and made a couple mistakes, whatever, but came out of the game, and walked down the bench. Her teammates all stood up. They all tried to shake her hand, high five her, whatever. She walked right by, didn't acknowledge a single one of them, walked to the end of the bench, kicked a chair about 5 feet down farther, sat down on the bench, put a towel over her head. And and I watched the Stanford coaches took a red pen out of their backpack and a book and drew a red line through it and crossed that girl's name off the list and got up and walked out of the gym. Now, I don't know if that girl even knew that they were there watching her play, or if there had been some kind of contact, but they didn't do that when she made a mistake, when she missed a shot, when she didn't screen out, when she got beat on defense. That they could live with all of that. It's when her body language and all of a sudden she wasn't a good teammate, then that's when they crossed her off the list and moved on to the next one. And,
That's great. And saying,
and I think
yeah.
too, and this is going to happen. I do this, and this is going to happen if a lot of coaches are going to have to watch more high school games. The majority of us, we sit across from the bench. So we're sitting on the other side of so we can watch the bench. So the athletes that we're watching, we can see how they react when their teammate scores. We can see how they react during timeouts. We can see how they react when they're not in the game, or when they come over to talk to the coach. Sometimes you sit right behind the bench, you can't see those things. So a lot of us, we sit on the other side for the sole reason so we can watch players and watch how and what they're doing when they're not playing, when they're a teammate.
That's huge. Ethan wants to know how you deal with inter-team conflicts that might come up during the season, or how do your players deal with it?
Well, it's I coach girls, so there's so there's conflicts every once in a while. I think that I think for us it comes down to it comes down to what your team goals and your team standards are about, and I think that so for this year, for example, we wanted to get back to the championship game. We wanted to win it. So everything that we're doing is that taking us closer to what we want to accomplish, or is that taking us farther away than what we want to accomplish? And one of the things that we all love about basketball and stuff is that it really is a team sport. if you go back and, we all watched, I'm sure, The Last Dance, the last several weeks, and talking about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. And it came back and where he said, hey, he didn't win until Scottie Pippen was there. He didn't win until he had a different group around him. His skills didn't change that much, but it was more with the people around him. And that's with all of us. So I think when we have conflict that comes up every once in a while, it's try to sit down and say, okay, is this moving us closer to our individual and team goals, or is this moving away from our individual and team goals? And I think the other thing is that it's important, and, again, from that Last Dance, is that, Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman were not best friends. I mean, they didn't hang out all the time. They didn't run in the same circles. They didn't, but they respected each other. And I think on teams, I don't think you don't necessarily have to be everybody's best friend. But I think you have to respect it. I think you have to respect each other, and I think you have to be willing to help each other. We're going to have girls, like I said, 7 states, 3 different countries. We're going to have people that are going to listen to country music. We're going to have people that are going to listen to rap. I don't know what they listen to in Poland. People are different, and I think that's part of the good thing about being on a team is you get a chance to live and be around and adjust and adapt to people who don't always think the same way that you do. But I don't know. But if I knew the answer to that, how I could write a book and go on the lecture circuit, and and there are probably 1,000 coaches who would all buy that if I knew what the secret, the absolute secret was to eliminating conflict or to solve it, or to solve it 100% of the time.
If you'd be a great author, Dave, but you're a hell of a basketball coach. I mean, you've done obviously 881 wins. That's just an incredible feat. So if you guys, I want to respect your time, Coach, and everybody that's on. So we'll wrap this up. But real quick, I want you to describe the play at the end of the game and how that played out. Give the scenario, give the score, and tell that story. I love this story.
Well, a year ago, we had again all freshmen. We lost the game at the very beginning, our first league game that put us kind of behind the 8 ball the whole rest of the season. And so we came down to the last game of the last league game, and if we win it, then we're the region champions, and we would get a better seed into the playoffs. If we lose it, then we finish second and not quite as good a seed. So the game came down to the very end. There were 4 seconds left in the 4 seconds left in the game. The score was tied. We have the ball underneath our own basket. I called timeout, and I told my dad, who was sitting on the bench, I said, "Hey, we're going to win this right now, running the crash." And the crash is a play that I think I've been coaching now probably a little more than 30 years, and we ran it once before years ago in California, and I've been here in Oregon now, I think about 24 years. We've never run it. We've practiced it every single year and have never run it into a game. And so I know nobody had ever seen it before. So we lined everybody up in a box on underneath our basket, and we had our we had our best shooter, our best scorer out at the free throw line, and when the official handed our inbounder the ball, our best scorer backpedaled about 5 or 6 steps in order to draw the defense out, out with them. Then we had the girl on the block that was on her side, right in front of the inbounder, turn and to run up and set a diagonal screen on the girl on the opposite elbow. And when that happened, the two girls, we had them run into each other. And they hit each other in the middle of the key, and they started screaming. And one started yelling that her knee was hurt, the other was screaming, and they're both laying in the middle of the key, yelling. And for a second there, the defenders actually, if you go back and watch the tape, you can actually see the defenders lean down or bend over. They were going to help the girl who was screaming about her knee up. And while all that was going on and everybody turned around to see what the commotion was in the middle of the key, our post player who was on the opposite block took one step out and then stepped right in front of the defender, right in front of the rim, and we handed her the ball and she laid it in, and we won. And it was, we were running down the other end before all the defenders even knew what had happened before we had scored. And so it was something that we had practiced for years, had never run, had been saving it for that specific case. We used it. It worked perfect. We'll probably never be able to run it again. After the game, I'll bet I got text messages from both our alumni and coaches from all over the country that were watching the live stream of that game and saw that. And some text, hey, good job. Hey, did you guys do that on purpose? Was that an accident? That nobody really knew exactly what was going on. They just knew that we did something at the very end and was able to win the game.
That's awesome. I just love that story. You've had that in your bag 24 years, never used it, and then that one, the perfect occasion for it. You had the two girls run into each other on purpose, and then you get the easy bucket. I just love that.
And
awesome.
And it worked. As I said, it worked. It worked great, and it was one of those that, it always pays to be prepared. So
for sure.
Hey, Brant, before we go, can I let me give out my phone number.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Because in case somebody has questions later on, or somebody just wants to, has another question or wants to talk basketball or wants to talk community college basketball or has a friend or a sister or cousin that's looking for a place to play. I would like them to have my phone number so they can call me, text me, whatever they want to do.
Awesome. Yeah. If you tell it, they can either write it down or I'll type it in the chat here also. So
yeah, it's 541-680-BALL.
Love it.
So it's 680-BALL 2255.
That's a great one, Coach.
So
that's a great number for a basketball coach.
Yep. Yeah. So I went and got it. When I went and got the phone, the guy at the store wanted to know what number I wanted, and I told him, I have no idea. It doesn't matter to me. And he recognized me. He said, well, hey, you coach. This is the number you should have. And so it was his. I didn't even think it was his idea. I've had it for years. It's worked out. It's worked out great.
That was your first cell phone.
So Yep.
First cell phone.
Yeah, I've had that for 22 years, or whenever they first started coming into Roseburg.
Did you get a pager? Did you ever have a pager, Coach Stricklin?
No, I never did. I never did have.
Never jumped on that one.
But I know people that did. That just wasn't me.
I gotcha. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time, Coach. What they ask, what's your email address if they want to shoot you an email?
Yeah, it's Dave Stricklin, Stricklin at umpqua.edu.
Dave.Strickland.
Yep, at umpqua.edu. That's it.
That's it. Awesome. Well, hey, again, I appreciate it, Coach. Definitely respect everything you do. And the one thing that sticks out to me is, as much as you've done, what you say you're the most proud of is seeing the kids and them being successful and their achievements and their success, and just kind of taking the spotlight off yourself is just, I respect
Well,
that a lot.
I don't know. I know you guys do this. You guys do this the exact same way, but you can manipulate the game except to sometimes to win games. That's not really what I want to do. I've always thought that if I looked out after the players and I treated the players right and did everything I could to make them better and to give them a good experience, then the wins just seem to take care of themselves. And I think that's the way I've tried to do it. And I've tried to treat players like I would hope someday somebody would treat my kids, when they went to go play. And it sounds really corny, but the culture here, it really is a basketball family. And it's been, like I said, it's been great. And I'll remember those relationships and have those, people as part of my life long after anybody's forgotten, that I ever coached a game.
For sure. That's why we do it. I agree. It's about the relationships and those special moments, but congratulations on all your success. And I know it's not the end, and you don't look old enough to have won 881 games, Coach.
So it's probably my quarantine hair making me look.
You're looking good. Well, hey, I appreciate you again, Coach, and thanks for everybody for joining in. Good to see you. Nice to see some new faces. Stella, what's up? Sawyer, I'm gonna unmute everybody so you guys can give a quick. Everybody can shout out or say hey. Unmute yourself.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hopefully you guys got something out of that, because I know I did. I got a lot out of it. I appreciate you, Coach Stricklin, and appreciate you giving out your number and helping these kids with some valuable information. Stella, where are you from?
I'm from Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene. I know Eugene a little. That's only about an
Yeah.
hour from Roseburg, right?
Yeah, it's actually pretty close. So I go to Churchill High School, but I actually live in Cresswell, so Roseburg is actually really close to here.
Do you